WHJM Anna, 1600 AM, WULM Springfield with translator W277AO, 103.3 FM Enon Dayton. In Pennsylvania on 88.1 FM, WHHN Holly-Daysburg, Altoona. In Wisconsin on 91.3 FM, WRMW Peshtigo. And in Mississippi, also on 88.1 FM, WOLM D'Iberville, Biloxi.
Hello and welcome to Catholic Answers today on Radio Maria. I am Cy Kellett, your host. Delighted to be with you. We've got a great morning planned for you. And our co-host today is Assistant Producer Marie. Good morning, Assistant Producer Marie.
Good morning. I'm so happy to be here today.
Were you able to get a guest for the show today?
You know, it was touch and go there for a while, but
we were able to do it.
Today we got the best of the best. So today we're joined by Tim Ryland, who's our editor of the Catholic Answers magazine, which is one of the best magazines in the world. And one of the best Catholic magazines in the world. Welcome, Tim.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here, too.
Which would you say is higher praise, one of the best magazines in the world or one of the best Catholic magazines in the world? I think you'd have to go with the wider one, right? One of the best magazines in the world.
Probably.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to think. There aren't many Catholic magazines left, to be honest.
That's true. A lot of Catholic magazines have kind of become either online things or they're just gone.
Yep. I can think of at least 3 or 4 that we might consider competitors that within the last 4 or 5 years are now either online or just gone.
And that's true in the print world in
Certainly.
general. Just it's been like a culling of print for what? How many years? 20, 25 or?
I would say that it's been the worst over the last 10 to 12 years. When everything crashed in 2008, I was working at a secular newspaper, and
so was I.
We lost 50% of our business.
It got killed.
And started laying people off, like, you know, throwing cigarettes out the window. It was really scary and sad, but I think in general that has started to decline. That had already started, as you say, a while ago, but the internet has fueled it, certainly. That's probably been the biggest thing.
Right, exactly. So and things like Craigslist took away
ads, classified
ads.
Right.
And the newspaper I worked at was local, community newspapers. And community newspapers are all. At least they used to be dependent on real estate advertising.
That's right. Same with the paper I was at. It was a daily, but that was a huge part of it.
That just wiped newspapers out.
Gone.
So why do we still have a magazine then? Why is Catholic Answers magazine still such a beautiful print edition?
Because it's the best magazine in the world.
Oh, okay. Thank you for clarifying that.
We have a real commitment here to the print magazine. Carl Keating, our founder, it was kind of his baby, and for many years before, I would say Catholic Answers Live and Radio became the flagship. It was the flagship of the apostolate. It was what people knew of the apostolate.
Yeah.
And it was its biggest organ, so to speak, its biggest outlet. But Chris Check, again, if anyone knows Chris, steeped in history as he is, and steeped in sort of old-time things, he loves the print magazine, and we have a very loyal subscriber basis that keeps us going. We don't dip below a certain number, kind of a critical number, and we have a great new marketing team in the last year or so we've never really marketed the magazine per se, in terms of taking out ads and everything. It's sort of word of mouth. We do our drive every year. We do our radio drive every year. But we're trying to come up with some more creative ways of marketing, because I do think when people see it and get it, they see the value of it. And we have we have some people that have been subscribing since the very first day. It used to be called This Rock. Started in 1990, and I still every now and then hear from someone that say,
almost 30 years.
Yep.
People still subscribe.
Next year is going to be our 30th anniversary.
Well, the thing is that I guess what you're saying is if you're going to do it, you got to make a commitment to it.
Right.
And it is part of kind of the strategy of Catholic Answers, where if you don't know what we do here at Catholic Answers, we pretty much we explain and defend the Catholic faith. That's it. We answer people's questions about the Catholic faith. And our strategy here is kind of be everywhere.
Right.
Wherever we could
be all things to all men.
Yeah,
and women.
And whether it's the internet, like we're not. You do a internet version of the magazine,
Yes.
Catholic Answers magazine online.
Yeah, we have a unique online version. Probably 5 times a week. We have unique. It doesn't appear in the print magazine. It's unique online material. We also have 29 years of the print edition archived online. So our online presence is very strong as well. But as you say, we're trying to cover all bases.
Yeah, try to be. I mean, the people who are trying to tear down the culture and trying to tear down the faith are not resting.
Right.
They're making plenty of material.
Sure.
So we got to be everywhere.
Yep.
I have to say about the print versus online also. When I was in college, I took journalism classes because I was considering that for my major. And in most of our classes, we were asked whether we preferred a newspaper, a magazine, or an online article. And most people at that time said an online article, but I think more and more that people are feeling so overwhelmed by the internet and by how many screens are in our face all day. And, I have to say that sitting down on my couch and reading the magazine, still learning something, still feeling connected, but not having a screen in front of my eyes at night or whatever, that's a really nice option.
Yeah,
and there's something that we believe in the Catholic faith about, the physical thing and being, for example, being in front of the true presence in adoration or whatever. And we believe that, the physical is important. So I've always been a fan of the newspaper and magazines always over online articles.
Well, I remember I got an education because my father believed that you should just leave printed material around the house and the kids will pick it up. So we always had Smithsonian Magazine and National Geographic. I wouldn't do National Geographic now. I'm not really thrilled with what they do, but at the time it was a different thing. And then the weekly magazines like Time and Newsweek. And that's one of the things with a magazine too, that you can the fact that it's laying around, that you don't have to turn something on or seek it out, I think makes it a very different kind of tool.
Right. No, I agree, and I know it's we're bi-monthly, so if you subscribe to us, it's probably going to sit around on your coffee table for a couple of months, and so we're aware of that. We're aware of the corporeality, as we were talking about. Just the physical nature of the magazine can be very pleasing and very comforting, and we also, when it comes to choosing the cover for an issue, I'm very aware. My mother, who's, God bless her, 97 years old, and she's a subscriber, when I go visit her, it's, the latest issue is sitting on her coffee table. And so I always think, when I'm trying to choose an image, would Mom want this on her coffee table for 2 months? Here's an example. The next cover story is by a really interesting story by Jimmy Akin. It's about Hitler. What was Hitler's religion? Because if you know anything about him, you know that he was baptized a Catholic. He was an altar boy as a child. So people sometimes will use that as a canard to say, well, he was Catholic. He was just going ahead and following, and his pogrom was following this, anti-Jewish Catholics hate the Jews because they killed the Christ. Right. And so it used in an apologetic sense. It gets used against us. So Jimmy has done a lot of research over the years. It's just been an interest of his. But he's talking about what was Hitler's religion. What did he think about God and about eternity? Because he wasn't an atheist by any means. Yeah. Anyway, very interesting article. But I tried several. I also designed the magazine, which I love doing. But I tried several different covers.
You can't put Hitler
on the cover of Mom's magazine, for goodness sake.
Yeah.
But you came up with something?
Yeah, I think we have something that gets the point across, but is something that you can live with, and it's not Hitler glaring at you. So.
Yeah, but that's another thing we Catholics are. I'm starting to sense a recommitment to the idea of a commitment to beauty, to make beautiful, whether it's the churches, and a lot of people are concerned that the music at churches is beautiful now, but that's that's one of the ways that we serve God and make God presence to other people is to make beautiful things, not to do it in a kind of half-baked way.
Are you calling my magazine beautiful?
No, I would not do that. I would never go. But you know what I'm saying.
I do know what you're saying.
Many times,
absolutely.
Beauty is certainly one of the considerations in it. I find it beautiful lots of the time, and you take the time, or you take the space to let the magazine breathe on the inside. There'll be beautiful art, or sometimes a whole page that accompanies the story with art. Okay, so you got the cover story this time, Unchanging. The church's teaching on the sanctity of life. Why can't that change, Tim? Why can't we just loosen up on this sanctity of life thing?
Well, why can't we loosen up on the truth of our faith?
Yeah, good point.
It's an unchanging teaching of the church that life is sacred, and talking about the cover article is actually an adaptation of Raymond Cardinal Burke gave a talk on this particular subject at our conference. So this is an adaptation of that. But he went through very carefully and cataloged from the earliest church fathers on through some of the later Vatican councils how consistent the church's teaching on this has been. It's never changed. It's unchanging.
So you get big wigs like Cardinal Raymond Burke.
Yeah, I called him up and I said, "Hey, Ray."
Well, hey, Ray. That's how you talk to the Cardinal. Nice, Tim Ryland. I'm glad that you've got it like that.
I said, "You promised this article. I need it tomorrow."
Oh, that's good. Always put a cardinal on schedule. You're listening to Catholic Answers today on Radio Maria US, a Christian voice in your home. We're talking with Tim Ryland, the editor of Catholic Answers magazine. I am Cy Kellett, your host. Our co-host is assistant producer Marie, and we're just delighted to have you with us. If you need to find us online, you go to Catholic.com. If you need to find, and you should find, Radio Maria online, you go to radiomaria.us.
So, since our job here is explaining and defending the faith at Catholic Answers, one more comment that I have about the magazine is that I get a lot of questions every day, just on the phone from people about, they want to start a conversation, maybe even with just a relative that's difficult to talk to about the faith. Maybe it's somebody who's fallen away from the church. Maybe it's somebody who has never been Catholic, but either way, it can be intimidating to have those conversations. And I empathize with that, because I have, family members that are difficult to talk to about faith things as well. And when something like this is sitting on your coffee table and somebody comes over, it's a very non-threatening way for them to maybe,
interact with the faith.
Glance at something that you can trust that this will be the truth, because Catholic Answers is just trying to publish the truth. It's not an opinion magazine. It's not a news source. We're just saying this is what we believe. This is what is true. And I actually had one of these magazines on my parents' coffee table, and had somebody over there, and it started an interesting conversation. I think, if only to expose somebody to thinking about what the church is presenting, it's worth it.
Yeah, I know quite a few members of your family, so could you which ones are the difficult ones? I mean, since we have
all of my brothers.
All your brothers.
Just kidding. They're all great. They're not the. let's not.
Can I tell you, I'm going to steal your magazine for a second.
Yes.
This may just be the fact that I have attention deficit, but this is my favorite part of the magazine.
I think it's a lot of people's favorite part.
I love this part. There's at the back of the magazine, it's just like dozens of questions every
Yes, I was
issue.
talking about a department we have every month called Quick Questions, and it's just our apologists field questions all the time. A lot of it comes through online and emails, and they pick the ones that they think are most pertinent. Each of our apologists will answer 4 or 5 questions in a fairly brief, concise manner, and it's a lot of fun. It's easy to pick up and set down. You know, you can take them in little bites, and some of them are very, very interesting.
Yeah, like Michelle just starts us off with, Michelle's an apologist here. Can a person with Down syndrome enter religious life? Where else are you going to, what other magazine are you going to get that in? I mean, and it'll go the gamut, you know. Yeah. Is it better to go to confession when you have nothing to confess, or can I rest assured that not going is okay if I've been truly sinless? First of all, I want to meet that person.
Well, that's
impressive.
Part of the answer. But, was that one of Father's questions?
Yeah.
He said, it's hard to believe that you're sinless. But
are Catholics allowed to be sponsors at the dedication of an infant in a Baptist church? It's
there's
one
some real brass tacks answers.
Right, and it's not always stuff that I would think of too. Is like I like sometimes the best question for me is I've never had that question. I've never even thought of that.
Right,
and it's just fun to read those, usually 3 or 4 pages, right at the back of the book.
Yep.
Catholic Answers magazine. You can find out all about it at Catholic.com. You mentioned a cardinal before. I want to take a minute to talk about a cardinal. Lots of news, and a lot of it bad from down under, from both New Zealand and Australia. And Cardinal Pell, really a prominent, very prominent cardinal in the church. I mean, we have, 120 or 130 cardinals. And so they're all, prominent.
Right.
But this guy has really been a tremendous leader for quite a while in the church, convicted of molestation in Australia last week. And given a sentence, I think, of 6 years.
He was convicted earlier, but sentenced last week.
Oh, sentenced last week. Is that what happened? Okay,
right.
Thank you.
Yep.
And now he's in solitary confinement and not allowed to celebrate Mass. And so I am stuck with this. I remember when the founder of the Legionaries of Christ was accused of things, and many prominent members of the church, including, if I recall, Pope John Paul II, were quite ready to come to his defense. And someone who I really, really trust and knew a lot of the inside stuff said, I have a moral certainty that these things are not true.
Wow.
He said, I don't have an absolute certainty, but I feel morally certain they're not true. And then they turned out to all be true. And you feel horrified by that. And I feel like we're in a moment now in the life of the church where people are willing to believe more. And that's because we've kind of been, again and again and again, our sensibilities have been abused. If we want to be defensive, not a good time to be defensive because we keep being wrong.
Right.
Yep. And so I feel that way about Cardinal Pell, but at the same time, when you actually read what's going on in Australia, you get a very strong sense this is an attack. This is an anti-Catholic attack.
Yep.
And that Cardinal Pell is not guilty of these things.
I really believe he's a white martyr.
Oh, you think so? So So you're convinced of it?
Well, everything that I've read, and just on the facts alone, George Weigel's been active in writing about this. He's a friend. He always starts off, I'm friends with Cardinal Pell, but and the facts as laid out, and I have no reason to assume that he's lying. There's just factually that these things couldn't have happened. Just on evidence alone.
Right.
Where he was never alone with people. Where it was he was in a different part of the church that these supposed victims of his were, and they're just the jury just flat out found.
Well, one jury came 2 votes away from
they were 10-2 hung up from acquitting him.
Right.
So they tried him again.
They tried him again on the same charges.
Same charges, different
and they got
jury.
a conviction.
They got a conviction.
And the thing is, the evidence seems so flimsy when you look at it, and the behavior of the authorities seems so blatantly and openly anti-Catholic that I guess, do you see my dilemma here? You don't want to, in this day and age, jump to the conclusion the church is being persecuted because we've been so wrong about that. It hasn't been persecution. It's been, but in this case, a reasonable person, I think, can look at it and go, Cardinal Pell, this does not ring true at all.
No, it really doesn't. And
so I don't know. What do you do in that? You're the wise editor of the finest Catholic magazine in the world. I mean, I pray for him, and I feel that he will be exonerated at some point in my heart.
Well, but because now apparently it gets appealed and goes before a panel of judges only in Australia. That's how this process works. So there won't be a jury. There will only be a panel of judges considering the case. And you hope and pray that he would get a fairer hearing, that professional judges would actually try to overcome whatever bias they might have and just look at the facts. So it doesn't look like the jury did that. So.
Right. But it's also striking that there is a growing anti-Catholicism in Western countries. A growing sense, not just that we put up with these Catholics, but that we need to confront these Catholics.
Right.
Like you hear more and more here in the U.S. that's expressed an animus against Catholic hospitals, a sense that they get federal money for treating patients, they should do abortions, that kind of thing.
Right.
And if they don't do abortions, then we should stop letting them have federal funds. So I do think that there is a growing anti-Catholicism. We've probably contributed to that with our own bad behavior.
Yes, I think that's certainly true. And I really do think Cardinal Pell is a lightning rod to all of that. He's just in the wrong place at the wrong time, to be honest, because there is this sentiment with all the abuse allegations in the church and people looking askance already at the hierarchy. If you get somebody that you can nail and feel good about it. I think, and if you look at Cardinal Pell's, as you say, his long 30-some years as a bishop in Australia, always fighting against the culture, always proclaiming the truth, always upsetting the status quo of the
he's
secular
a tough
media.
guy.
He's a tough guy. He's been a warrior for the church.
And a warrior, I think they feel like they got him now.
Absolutely.
We've just seen so often in the last year people being accused of things, and how often it seems to be just, one person's word against another. And I really feel for him if the allegations are not true. What a horrifying feeling to be wrongly accused of these things. But it also makes me think of Saint Bernadette, Saint Bernadette, and how God didn't promise to make her happy in this life, only in the next. And
yes, and I honestly think of someone like Cardinal Pell probably willingly accepts this type of martyrdom. I mean, if he's the warrior for Christ, which I believe he is, his witness is to do what he's doing now, which is to accept this unfair verdict and to do what he can to exonerate himself. But meanwhile, I mean, he's suffering. He's part of the church suffering. He's part of the church militant. He's part of the witness of the church.
Yeah, and I should say, when you talk about the impossibility of some of these claims, I mean, the one that I read where altar boy, after a Episcopal Mass in the cathedral, immediately after Mass in the sacristy, and bishops don't go to the sacristy.
That's what I've read over and over.
And when they do, I mean, I don't know if because I've often had to make give announcements and things at various churches, whether it's for Catholic Answers or for one of the radio stations I work for or whatnot. You get invited to the church, and a church sacristy after Mass it's
not an empty place.
You're not gonna that's just insane.
Yes,
like there's people there,
of course,
and so how much more when a bishop is there? I mean, one of the things I always notice about bishops is they don't get a moment's rest because people are coming in the back door going, Bishop, could you just bless this? Or, here's my baby or whatever.
Or there are just 5 or 6 people escorting them to wherever they're going next.
So the idea that immediately after Mass, the bishop did not process out, this is the testimony. He didn't, first of all, have you ever seen a bishop not process out? Went directly to the sacristy, molested boys, and then went on with his...
It doesn't line up.
It just seems so insane. But again, I have that double feeling of...
you want to suspend your...
A lot of these bishops,
judgment.
like Bishop or former Cardinal McCarrick, have burned us.
Right.
And you don't want to be...
you don't want to be too quick to the defense.
No, you don't. I feel like there's something demonic in that.
Well, I think that's part of his martyrdom at this point, and to even good, faithful Catholics.
They don't want to defend him.
Don't want to jump to his defense right away.
Yeah.
Because of just exactly what you talked about.
Well, Tim Staples, our apologist here, the director of apologetics here, has been very vocal in defense. And a couple of times that he's been really vocal, I've almost winced a little bit, like, are you sure enough to be that? And I trust Tim. He's a very You call him First Timothy, and you call
Yes, I
yourself
do.
Second Timothy here.
That's right.
But I mean, I trust he's a very judicious person and all that, and he's been very vocal. This is not right, what's happening to Cardinal Pell. So it gives me a little more courage. But again, I feel like I understand people who might be very wary and say, well, another bishop convicted. Really, are we going to defend this guy? But this looks, smells, walks, and talks like an anti-Catholic, hysterical persecution.
And I pray that this all is, that the truth is revealed in all of this. But I also think, if he has the kind of relationship with the Lord that we think he does, then he cares about what God thinks of him above anybody else. And like, if he knows that he's right with God, then
Right.
I'm sure he's at peace about that. And, that's all any of us hopes for, that no matter what anybody else thinks of us or accuses us of, that, Jesus knows what we've done and what we believe and what we love, and he sees that.
Yeah.
I mean,
Well, that's the thing. That's what it means to have your life hidden in Christ. That it's only in Christ that the truth about all of us is revealed, and it is revealed. I am not looking forward to that part. I am not. I mean, I always there's like, oh man, I went to college. I don't want that. Like, how many dumb things? Not even necessarily sins.
I just hope that I'm way back in the queue when they announce them publicly
right. Like
at the final
gets,
judgment.
Whenever
like, okay, I've heard that before.
Yeah, there's already been 1 billion people we've gone through that played beer pong.
Yeah, who wants to be number one?
Yeah, right. Who wants to be first at that point? So, but the truth, I mean, to live a life hidden in Christ, that's what a mother who devotes herself to her children is doing, living a life. And no one understands that suffering except the Lord himself. No one understands the courage it takes to be a mom devoted to your kids. The same with a father devoted to his wife and children. The heroism that is hidden among imagine being the pastor at a Catholic parish anywhere in the world now. We don't know what those men go through. Their true life is hidden in Christ. He sees it. He knows about the struggles they go through. He knows about their fidelity or their attempts to be faithful. And so when you see someone like Cardinal Pell suffering, solitary confinement and can't celebrate Mass, they won't let him have the implements to celebrate Mass. I mean, I guess in a certain extreme way you could say, well, I understand the solitary confinement. Maybe they want to make sure he's safe before they, they want to keep him isolated.
Sure.
But how are you not letting the man celebrate Mass? It's just petty. It's petty and mean, but his life, I think he's these types of martyrs, as you call them, a white martyr, which maybe you could explain. It does suggest to all of us, just have faith. Your life is hidden in Christ, but it's not hidden in Christ forever.
That's right.
So what does that mean, white martyr?
Well, the distinction that we make between red martyrs, who are people who literally died for their faith, shed blood in most cases, as opposed to a white martyr, which would mean someone who didn't necessarily die for the faith, but is dying in certain ways, in the in the eyes of the world, et cetera, like that. And you have to offer, as Marie was saying, you only care about what your relationship with God, and as humans, we care what other people think, but that's part of that martyrdom, is suffering the ridicule and the public humiliation, and doing it willingly, and doing it with a pure heart and with love in your heart. I mean, that's the bottom line. People that are holy are filled with love. Everything we do is about love. If you want to get down to the basics, everything we do here at Catholic Answers, every time we go to Mass, every time we throw ourselves on the breast of our Father asking forgiveness and confession, it's about love. It's about His love for us, our love for Him, and as humans, that love being expressed to our love to other people, and our recognition of God in them. It's all about love. That's the bottom line. I think
Praise
people like
God
Cardinal
for you
Pell.
saying that. Thank you so much for saying that, because sometimes I do think people think it's about rules, or it's about, I don't know, about avoiding mortal sin. Even a person who's really devoted to avoiding mortal sin, sorry, that's not enough.
Right.
That's not what it's about.
Well, I have to tell you, Si, it's not me. This is foremost in my mind because I was with a close friend and 800 people burying his 19-year-old son who died in his sleep a week and a half ago.
Oh, my God.
And this is what my friend said at the gravesite as they were pouring dirt onto his son's coffin. He spoke. There were a couple hundred people there, and he said, I just almost verbatim, he said, this is all about love. You have to love one another, and if you don't learn to love here on earth in the way God made us and wants us to love, you won't be able to love him. In other words, you might not go to heaven if you're not doing a good job of learning how to love here on earth.
Right. That's exactly. Christ couldn't have been clearer about that.
Right.
Unless I think we just read that last week in one of these Lenten readings, unless you forgive, you won't be forgiven. Well, forgiveness is one of the basics of love. Again, you're listening to Catholic Answers today on Radio Maria US, a Christian voice in your home. I'm going to be checking our Facebook and YouTube feeds. If anybody's got a question or comment they'd like to get involved in the conversation, I'll try to take some of those and share them with our guest, Tim Ryland, the editor of Catholic Answers magazine, and our co-host, assistant producer Marie, and then we'll get into a little conversation. If you want to call, you're welcome to call. I haven't given out the number because I knew this was going to be a little bit of a tough one. But we'll maybe take some calls if you want. 888-318-7884 is the number. 888-318-7884. I will tell you, the two of you, just from a cursory look, noticing folks from Africa, from the Philippines, from Eastern Europe, I think Poland, visiting with us on Facebook.
Wonderful.
So,
Thank you for joining us.
It's really nice to see those things. It always makes me so happy when, if anybody's from Australia, maybe give us a note that you're from Australia, and you can get in on the conversation. You probably know more about it than we do. Although we have the internet here, I don't know. We the internet now. You can know everything everywhere. When I first moved back to California from Boston, I could barely follow the Boston Celtics. Now I can watch almost every Boston Celtics game.
Right.
I can get all the news on the Boston Celtics. I'm not saying that the Boston Celtics is the most important thing in the world. It's the greatest sports franchise in the history of the world, clearly. But I'm just saying, if there's something you're interested in, you can find it now. You can have. It's so weird that young people, even Marie, I know you're not a baby.
Yes,
but
she is.
I'm pretty young.
But you never really were grown up in a world where you couldn't pretty much get everything on the internet.
Yeah. When I was, things really switched over. When I was going into high school, that was when I feel like I remember internet being much more accessible and people starting to have it on their phones.
Wait, did your internet ever do this?
We had dial-up when I was really little.
Oh, but you were really little. Okay.
And then I remember we had internet at some point on one computer in our house, and it was funny looking back because you could only have one tab open at a time. And I remember a friend being over. We were working on a science project or something, and my dad had upgraded our computer or something, and we were able to open like 3 tabs, and she was in awe that we could have 3 pages open at once. But yeah, I think my parents actually did a really good job of keeping technology somewhat at bay until I was actually graduated from high school. They were really, really reticent to give us technology, and I'm from a big family, so we were always budgeting too, so it wasn't like any of us had the newest or the latest. I think so there was, but by the time
3 tabs, you were a rich
3
family.
tabs.
If you could open 3 tabs, don't you think, Tim? You remember those days?
It's the 3-tab rule.
Yeah,
you have 3 tabs.
That's a wealthy family.
You're upper middle class.
Right now, I just found out on my cell phone that there's a button you could push that will close all the apps at once.
Oh,
don't tell me that. I didn't know that.
Yeah, really?
I do not know that.
Yeah, apparently it's better for you or for your phone if you just close the apps every
Maybe
now
you
and
can
then.
show me that later.
Doesn't drain your battery.
Again, you're listening to Catholic Answers Today on Radio Maria US, and you can find all about Radio Maria US by visiting radiomaria.us. They also archive the programs there, so if you want to get them, you can do that. Joseph on Facebook says, the priests who committed these sex crimes, is there any hope for them to have forgiveness and mercy when they go before God? Okay, first of all, just don't say anything. I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, and then I want you to say either yes or no, the two of you, and we're going to see if you come up with the same answer. The priests who committed these sex crimes, is there any hope for them to have mercy and forgiveness when they go before God? 1, 2, 3.
Yes. Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
I mean,
so you've read the gospel. Yes, there is. Of course, God is merciful, and his mercy endures forever.
yes. And we're not, in saying that, we're not saying that what they did wasn't wrong, or that it didn't have consequences, or that it didn't, hurt other people. But every single one of us sins, and praise God.
Not that one guy. Not that one guy that wrote the magazine.
Not the one guy, but
he doesn't.
The rest of us, we all sin, and because of God's mercy, we're forgiven for our sins. And I think, God willing, as we grow in our spiritual life and we continue on our journey, our attachment to sin hopefully lessens, and hopefully we become holier as our life continues, only by the strength and the grace of God, I think. But, even people who do terrible things, we believe that they can be forgiven if they're truly sorry for what they've done and they want to repent.
Yeah.
That is what our faith teaches. And it doesn't mean that, we should put whatever person, around little children or whatever.
No,
but they
Lord,
can
no.
definitely be forgiven. Tim?
Praise God. No, what seems like, you got it right.
Yeah, I'm just
what do you want to grade?
nodding my head here on the radio going, she's right.
I do want to grade.
888-31-TRUTH is our number. That goes straight into the studio if you want to give us a call, 888-318-7884. I realize I gave out that number quite late in the show. We've been talking about Cardinal Pell with Tim Ryland, editor of Catholic Answers Magazine, and with our co-host, assistant producer Marie. Probably should not neglect to mention, I just want to quickly mention, see if there's anything you'd like to say. That shooting in New Zealand, absolutely horrific. And then apparently a shooting on the subway in the Netherlands today. I think I have that right.
That's news to me.
But
sure.
They both seem religiously based. Apparently, well, I'm not sure, but the one in New Zealand, it's anti-Muslim or anti-immigrant, or it's just an ugly combination of these things? Or what's your take on it?
I just think it's too early to have a take. These things are so multi-layered.
Yeah. Evil, though.
Well, it's just purely evil, whatever the motivation was. But you see the ills of our age. The internet is a wonderful thing, and we reach so many people for Christ through it. And yet it allows someone like this sick person to live stream a massacre. It's just, it's unconscionable. I mean, I really can't wrap my head around it. I sometimes almost despair thinking about these types of things, like, how can this happen? Yeah. How can God's permissive will allow? I mean, it's the problem of evil that we're having to talk to people about all the time.
And it's such a basic, visceral problem. I think you don't just, it's not just an intellectual problem. This is one where you feel it. Like, how, Lord, can you...
gut punch.
Again and again and again. But certainly, I mean, I guess part of what I take away from what you're saying is, look, if the internet's making you angry, please get off the internet. Go take a walk. Yeah. Go look at the blue sky. I mean, unless you're in Seattle, and
go look at the gray
and then
sky.
You poor people.
Yeah, if you're in Seattle, don't go for a walk. Go see a movie. But sorry, Seattle. I didn't mean to pick on you, but you are a horrible, horrible place.
Wow.
I know they don't. I'm kidding. But
we love all the people in Seattle.
No, but I feel like this is true of us Catholics too, that there's so much anger in the Catholic podcasting sphere, and so much anger in the Catholic blogging, and it's like don't allow that to poison you. I know that there's a million reasons you want to be super angry at Pope Francis or at some other aspect of church life. And you know what? Pope Francis probably deserves it. Every cardinal, every Catholic, we all deserve it, right? We're just, human beings are just really difficult to tolerate. But if the internet is making you mad at the Pope, go read the Bible for a while. Do something else.
Right.
That's not what Jesus wants for you.
The internet is training people to have instant gratification. And so when something difficult happens or they're faced with a difficult, idea that they need to think about and maybe work with and mull over, that doesn't happen as much anymore. People just have reactions to things now because everything is so instant and so fast. And I think that the messages that people are getting online are, have more, have more, have more. Do everything for yourself. Make your life a happy life. Be successful. Get in front of the other guy. Like, those are the messages that I see online when I'm online. And sometimes I find myself kind of thinking, like, this is really getting to me. Sometimes when somebody's talking about, their right to whatever, I'm like, it's, if you're really just taking in so much toxic media all the time, it can really get to you. And I think it can make your thoughts confusing about, maybe something to be true, but some, these other voices are just saying
Amen, sister.
These other messages.
Well, Catholics used to know that. We used to have a phrase called the near occasion of sin. And you used to know that I'm not a superhero. I can't expose myself to garbage all day and not have it change my soul. But I think people don't believe that anymore. No one tells them about near occasion of sin. Look, here's a near occasion of sin. If you constantly expose yourself to angry stuff, and I'm just going to say about the Pope, for example, then you're going to end up angry at the Pope, okay? You are partly responsible for that because you put yourself in that position. You weren't responsible with your time or with your eyes or with your... And I mean, I'm not saying there's not legitimate reasons to be mad at the Pope. I mean, you can be mad at whoever you want, but this constant feeding of anger is it's very sick.
Yeah, and I think it's a good point. And I think that part of the problem is, I mean, people would understand avoiding the occasion of sin in terms of not looking at pornography, but I don't know that everyone looks at what they consider righteous anger as sinful. You're making a really good point. I think that it becomes toxic, but people don't view it in the same way as they do something that's like more clearly wrong.
And in a weird way, it's probably worse than pornography in the subtle, well, maybe not. I don't know if there's much that's worse.
Pornography's pretty bad.
Okay, maybe, I don't know. But it's very serious to foster anger in yourself.
Right.
Jesus specifically tells us don't do it, and very, very clear terms. And yet we feed this. I mean, it's not just, Jesus throughout the whole scriptures, in the Proverbs, the Psalms, the person who nurtures this anger is clearly invoked by God. Knock it off. And we need to do it. We need to stop stoking the flames of anger.
So you seem angry about this.
I know. I'm so mad. I am just so mad.
It's concerning, though, when people leave church and immediately
in the parking lot.
Get infuriated at someone who cuts them off in the parking lot.
Why are you talking about me? Why are you talking about me, Marie?
But
they shouldn't be cutting me off.
Haven't you guys noticed that this is not the same everywhere, but like on our roads here, people are so tense and angry and in a hurry.
Yes. I make it worse because I'm a terrible driver. I feel awful about this, but people will flip me off or just be so red-faced angry, and I
apologize for that.
No, sorry, I know. But I feel like, I'm not doing it on purpose. I just fell asleep at the wheel again.
Oh my gosh.
Well, listen, San Diego made the list of the top 10 worst driving cities. It was number 6.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, congratulations, San Diego. Nice going.
Yeah.
I visited Denver 2 weekends ago, and my friends there had, warned me ahead of time, drive the speed limit there, and watch out, because people are actually, when they're merging, they're going slowly, they're taking their time, and, just drive carefully, drive the speed limit. I was so relaxed the whole time I was there, and partially it was because I was on vacation, but partially it was because when I went on the road to go somewhere, I did not get yelled at, I did not get flipped off, I did not get cut off on the freeway.
So completely unlike work here at Catholic Answers.
It was just, you don't realize, I think that the way that people drive is very revealing about, who they are, because they're giving those really, fast reactions, and it's not safe to do half the things that happen on the freeway here.
So you're saying it was more mellow in Colorado?
It was.
Well, that may be one of the upsides
maybe we shouldn't get
legalizing marijuana.
Okay.
I'm sorry. I think that's a joke. It's a bad joke.
That's, you know what, though? It's almost the top of the hour, and it's the first time we've crossed the line.
I'm sorry. And it had to be me. That's why you had me on.
Yeah, now I'm angry at Tim Ryland, and I'm going to write letters. I wanted to share something with you, too, before we went. And I wanted to get to, look, I don't know if you ever watched Christian movies in, the 90s or the 2000s.
I did.
Or even some still today. They could be a little bit heavy-handed.
A little ham-handed. Yes.
Yeah, a little bit like...
a little didactic.
Cheesy.
Didactic. That's a very fancy word. I'm going to look that up, but I totally agree. Very didactic. I don't know about didactic, but they're trying to teach a lesson.
Of course.
Yeah.
So, isn't that what didactic means? I'm sorry. I thought that was funny because I thought that's what's funny about it is I don't know what didactic means, apparently. Okay, so I went to see the movie Captain Marvel.
Oh, you did?
Yes.
Did you enjoy it?
I did enjoy it. I like all superhero movies. They can be bad, and I still like them. But this was I thought, a good mid-level. But it preached from beginning to end girl power.
Yeah, I have not seen it, but I was going to say, Cy, as a white male, you're not really welcomed at that movie.
Well, no, to tell you the truth, it didn't feel like that. It didn't feel like an attack on whiteness or maleness or anything. It didn't feel like that, but it did feel like just constant going back to the point girls can do it. And then if it's not girls, of course, women can do it, right? But it had a lot of girls in it, and I thought, this is like if I were a critic and I were watching a Christian movie, I'd go, well, I think they were a little heavy-handed with the preaching. Well, watch Captain Marvel. It's exactly the same thing. It's just heavy-handed with a different kind of secular girl. And I don't want to come across as if I'm against girl power, because I'm not. Quiet down, Marie. I'm talking. But go ahead. What were you going to say?
I have to say, no, this has been really heavy on my heart this last week, because I saw a series of, it was like a little YouTube interview series of just a guy interviewing ladies on the street in New York. And he kept asking them if there was anything that, men were naturally more gifted with than women. And he would first ask them, is there something that women are more gifted at than men? And they would list a bunch of things. And then he would ask the second question about men. I wanted to cry watching it, because none of the women could think of anything that men were better at. But besides that, they were angry talking about men. One woman said she would rather go through her whole life without ever interacting with a man again. And that made me, all of this feminism and empowering women is important, but we're not empowering boys now, and they're leaving their kids still. And we have broken families. And it's like, okay, this went too far. This went way too far.
Okay, you know what? Now we've said it on the air, in the radio. Everyone, people of the earth, this has gone too far. I'm glad that we've... but it just seems like somebody needs to say it. Now we've said it, but I don't think people are... I just don't think people are listening. I don't know.
I don't know what these women have... They've drunk the juice or whatever it is, but... the fact that, like, you know, maybe I could have a conversation with them and they might admit that, yeah, they wish my dad didn't exist, or they wish my brothers didn't exist. And I think, what a shame that you are so close-minded that you can't see how beautiful it is that men and women exist together, complementing each other. Like, they should be lifting each other up. Men should be protecting women. Women should be supporting men, etc. It's such a beautiful, it can be such a beautiful relationship. And women can't just, if the world was all women, it would end. So that's what I have to say.
Good point.
Wait, why? You're going to have to explain that to me. If the world was, because women would blow it up or something?
Although people want to ignore biology, it does exist.
Tim Ryland is the editor of Catholic Answers Magazine. You should get it. Go to CatholicAnswersMagazine.com. You can find out all about it. Thank you very much, Tim Ryland.
Yeah, I'm happy to be here.
What a pleasant hour it was to spend with you. Assistant producer Marie is the assistant producer of our radio programming here at Catholic Answers. Thank you, assistant producer Marie.
Thanks for having me. Thanks for letting me rant.
I am Cy Kellett. This is Catholic Answers Today. Many thanks to everybody at Radio Maria. Jesus Christ is the light of the nations, and we'll see you next time on Catholic Answers Today.